I now call the April 10th, 2018 special meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. And Councilmember Godey will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and after that, Councilmember Bailey will offer an invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that we have. Thank you for the ability that we have to serve as council people for the city of Riverton. We thank you for the many blessings that we get to enjoy living in this wonderful city and this wonderful state. And we ask that you pour out your blessings upon us, especially those in law enforcement and the military, that you will keep them safe, and that you will guide us in all that we do, that we will make the best decisions that we can for the community. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lance Godey.
Here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Sean Peterson.
Here.
Mayor John Baker.
I am present. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Holly Gibbon from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye, and the motion passes, and I declare that we do have a quorum. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye, and the agenda has been approved. The first item is Eastern Shoshone Planned Unit Development. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council, we're very happy to be here with you tonight and finally having all of these documents together. I felt that if we hadn't brought it forward after my statement at the last council meeting, it might have got a bad time. So we're really happy to have it here for you. What we have before you tonight is a planned unit development agreement and associated documents associated with the development of the property, the former Honor Farm property. The Eastern Shoshone Tribe purchased the 302 acres in 2016. In January of this year, Council approved ordinance number 17028 to account for the appropriate PUD zoning, which modified the PUD zoning at that time, allowing us to move forward on this process. During the interim time period between that point and now, we have done a third-party review via Matt Ashby of Ayers and Associates in Sheridan, and council has been provided that documentation previously. Additionally, there have been small changes to the PUD document throughout. Those have been basically fine-tuning items dealing with different questions that came up at different times in order for clarification most of the time. During the work on the PUD, it was determined that it would be beneficial to consider the different parts of the PUD process as multiple documents, which is why you have multiple documents before you this evening. Of those documents are the Eastern Shoshone Business Park PUD Agreement, the Memorandum of Understanding pertaining to drainage development, the Agreement of Limited Waiver of Sovereign Immunity, and Special Improvement District Agreement. It is important to note that the developer is currently moved the property into an LLC, which is SITA LLC, for the purposes of developing this property. We are in receipt of the certificate of good standing, the SITA filing information, and the recorded deed of transfer to SITA. Staff has received those since this has been written. With the four documents, the first item being the Eastern Shoshone PUD agreement, this document will serve as the overriding document for land use and development on the denoted property. In cases where the PUD agreement does not address a particular item, the code that is currently adopted by the city at that time will then govern. So if it's not addressed in the PUD agreement, then it reverts to our code. So basically, this particular item is the meat of the PUD and deals with items such as setbacks, floor area ratio, general design standards, and the like. The second item is the MOU pertaining to drainage development. As the current city drainage easement on the property runs through approximately the middle of the property going north-south, this MOU addresses the intent of the parties to abandon the current easement and develop the retaining pond, ponds along the eastern side of the property. This denotes that there is a pro rata share that is to be paid by each particular party to this agreement, including the developer, and ongoing maintenance is also addressed in that to some extent. There will be additional discussion about that later as it's fully developed and actually designed and the like. So there would be more detail. At this point, we do not have that detail because we're not at that point in the development process. The third item is the agreement of limited waiver of sovereign immunity. One of the items that became a question when working with a tribal entity was how the existence of sovereign immunity applied to development. It was something new, and so it did take a great amount of time for us to research. In this case, what we did was worked with the developer. The developer moved the property into an LLC just as any other developer could. This waiver of sovereign immunity only takes effect if the property is moved out of the LLC or transferred out of the LLC. Otherwise, it basically sits on the shelf and isn't applied. But in the case that it ceases, the SITA LLC ceases to exist, or again is transferred, then the waiver of sovereign immunity applies. On 4 is the Special Improvement District Agreement. As we've discussed at previous council meetings, there is a desire for the developer to participate in the Special Improvement District, which is a process that does run through the city. As such, as the Special Improvement District Agreement is presented to you for your consideration. If approved, we would begin moving forward with Barbara Bonds and her associates in order to move the project forward and get the formal resolutions and bring those back to you. So we would sign a non-binding agreement tomorrow, probably, or the next day, that allows us to work with them that they require in order for the underwriting and the like. We have other individuals here that can talk more about that process at length and give more detail than I can. However, the individuals that have worked with Barbara Bonds do recommend that these types of items are done through a special attorney. Currently, there is no direct budget impact to this passage at this time. However, obviously, there are going to be general budget impacts as we work with the developer. We've talked about the drainage work to be done in the future, and as such, we cannot quantify exactly how much that is at this time, but there will be an expense. There will be expense as we develop in that area. However, we have talked about the development of our drainage otherwise and have worked at securing funds for that prior to this anyway. So that was something that was going to be a cost ongoing. Speaking of council goals, this does address goal number 4, which is the promotion of economic development within our community. I would take a moment to thank everyone for their patience in this process. I showed up here about 5 months ago and asked for that patience as we went and developed and we worked through the process. So we appreciate that, and I would thank everybody that was involved. Steve Wilson, who is the development representative for the developer, is here and can speak to you about the process and much of the detail that goes into this. Additionally, everybody that has worked on this is here this evening. So we have brought our attorney, the Eastern Shoshone attorney, the developer's representative. Staff has reviewed all of these documents at length and has worked through with the developer on every single aspect of this. So we have all the right people in the room, hopefully, to answer your questions, no matter what they be. At this point, I would point out Steve Wilson, who you've met before, and that is all I have at this point, but I would stand for any questions you have.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Tony right now? I would like to point out that we've got the chairman of the Eastern Shoshone Business Council, Mr. Clint Wagon, here with us. Okay, and Councilmember Nick Harris, and Councilmember Leslie Shakespeare. We're glad to have you here with us this evening. Mr. Wilson, have you got anything that you would like to say this evening? And then if Chairman Wagon has anything he'd like to say?
Great. Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. It's been a long road, and everybody's worked very diligently to get us here. I would like to make one more introduction. You've introduced the council members that are here from the Eastern Shoshone tribe. Their recently newly appointed attorney general is also here, Ms. Kim Craven, and so she's dead center in the middle.
Thank you, Kim.
She's been very integral in helping us get through a lot of the issues with your city attorney, and so with that, I'm here to answer your questions. Anything that you might have, I'm happy to do what I can do to help clarify things for you. This has been in front of everybody for a long time, so it's been a huge group effort, as Mr. Tolstead has mentioned. I mean, it's just been a lot of hard work and rolling up the sleeves and getting it done. So
Good.
I'm available.
Thank you,
You
Mr.
bet.
Wilson. Chairman Wagon?
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members and everybody else that's in here. I guess the only thing I want to say is, again, thank you for allowing, I guess, the hard work of staff that you have. We're obviously excited because, again, not so long ago, it seems like a long time ago, that we, looked at this property. And the thing that we, did verbally say through various sources, that we were looking at this development and doing it the right way. I think that, again, I've, stated to others that, we're, as the Shoshone tribe, we look forward to this continued partnership with the city of Riverton, and as well as other merchants and other people in business, because we know, this is, one of those new developments that I think for us, we've kind of see as an opportunity, not only for the tribe, but we see for the city of Riverton as well as the county. And we've always said that. And I know that, there was an article in County 10 today, a little bit about, what we were thinking. And, I think this first portion that we're looking at as development, I think is the test, just to kind of see, where we can move some things and continue a partnership. So, again, want to thank you for, allowing me a couple minutes to speak. And
You bet.
if there's any questions or comments for us, I'm open to that.
Okay. We're excited about it. All right. We're looking forward to this.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. So the first item on our agenda here this evening is resolution number 1363, Eastern Shoshone Business Park PUD Guidelines Agreement. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of resolution 1363.
Make
Your
a
Honor, I
motion.
would-
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I would move that we approve Resolution 1363, the Shoshone Business Park PUD Guideline Agreement.
Second.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Lance, go ahead.
Your Honor, by way of, I'm not sure Tony or whom, but you had mentioned, Tony, in your remarks that any of the agreement standards that don't meet our, or no, I can't remember how you said it, the standards that wouldn't, or that aren't met or aren't spoken to are met by code. Can you clarify that there are anything in the the agreement that don't meet our code to start with, and we're approving as part of the agreement? Or is everything that's in the agreement meets our code? Could you just kind of clarify that if you understand what my point is? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, Your Honor, Councilman. What I'm trying to imply, what I'm trying to state there is that there are certain items that PUDs deal with in terms of design, streetscapes, any number of items. And let's take setbacks in particular situations. A setback could be changed from, well, usually it's 15 feet, but in this situation, under these particular guidelines, under this development, with this idea in mind, okay, that's 10 feet. So while our code generally tries to accommodate all different types of development that is lumped into those different categories, i.e. commercial or industrial or the like, this is more specific. As such, those changes are things like, could be a setback, it could be, we discuss floor area ratio in here, heights, and the like. So if those are denoted within here and they differ from our code, on this property, this document would govern. So if there's something that we didn't see, because we can't account for every single thing, then we say, okay, how do we do this?
Right.
Then in that case, if it isn't denoted within the PUD agreement, then we would go back to our existing code at the time. So and additionally, what that means is if we're developing this in 5 years and there's a different code, that that could be different than it is now. But that is something, so we adopt normal codes on an ongoing basis. If that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a comment on the significant investment in Riverton by the Eastern Shoshone tribe. That gives us a partnership with them, which means that they want the best for us. We want the best for them. And this is just a big step towards allowing Riverton to fulfill our obligations to the citizens. Thank you.
Mike?
Your Honor, and I don't know who it's directed at, but since we've created this new LLC that is going to own that property, is there anything, is it still going to be called the Eastern Shoshone Business Park, for example? And it's just a change of ownership sort of underneath that? Or do we need to have any of this changed to cite the SITA LLC?
Your Honor, if I may, Councilman, I believe we've modified everything that we need to modify at this point, SITA LLC being the owner, and I believe that has been put within the PUD, has been modified within the PUD already to denote it, so I believe that's okay.
Okay, looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye. So that passes. The next thing is memorandum of understanding regarding drainage and development. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of that memorandum of understanding.
Your Honor, make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding for the drainage development.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye, and that passes. The next item is limited waiver of sovereign immunity agreement. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the sovereign immunity agreement.
Your Honor, I'd move we approve the agreement of limited waiver of sovereign immunity.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on that? Lance?
Your Honor, as I was reading your cover letter, I just kind of wanted to clarify So the limited waiver applies if the property is removed from the LLC. What are the conditions that the property then can be removed and therefore the waiver does take effect? Like what, I'm curious if, like, I guess I'm just trying to understand that, I understand why the LLC was created, but there's also kind of an out in the termination of the LLC. I'm not sure if you can speak to that or someone from the development, or do you understand? Again, do you understand? I'm not sure I'm saying it in the right way, but do you understand what I'm asking?
I believe I do, Council.
Okay, Rick, do you want to talk about that?
If I could, Mr.
Go ahead.
Mayor. I think the where it could be moved is, as the sole member of the LLC, the Eastern Shoshone Tribe could transfer title to the property back to themselves. Another possibility is, under federal law, they can create a Section 17, basically a tribal corporation. Federal? Okay, a federal corporation. That's when this would come into play. If it's the Eastern Shoshone Tribe, it would apply to them. Section 17 corporations allow for limited waivers of sovereign immunity, and so that's when this would take place. Right now, it's like any other developer that comes in, they would form an LLC to develop it. And so this is more just a contingency if that property is removed from the LLC into a different ownership.
Your Honor, can that be removed, as you indicated, back to the tribe and re-own it as the tribal entity?
Sure.
And therefore, then the waiver immediately applies?
Correct.
So, and I'm just trying to understand the logistics of this, is what prevents that from happening? I mean, we've asked for that LLC or some entity, and that's the way they chose to do it, is to have the limited waiver. So, or the limited waiver. So what prevents them immediately reverting it back out of the LLC and having the waiver now apply?
Well, I mean, that's the whole purpose for this document, is if they were to remove it, let's say they dissolve their LLC, under state law, you then pay all your obligations, and then the assets remaining are distributed to the members. That's how a traditional LLC would work. So if they dissolve this LLC or simply transfer it back, now the property is subject to this limited waiver of sovereign immunity. That's why it's in here, is to take care of that contingency if it happens.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Kim?
I guess the one thing I want to note is, I mean, this is an LLC, like Mr. Sollers was saying, is typically the way that this is going to get done, as I understand it. You're going to have this entity that's going to come in. It's going to be what's going to be in charge of everything going on. And so I think this is a good way that we can get into this and have it be what we're used to dealing with, which is having an LLC. The good thing about an LLC is that if there's liabilities that arise, the LLC would be responsible for them. So if there's anything that comes up for which they might be liable, the LLC would be responsible for that, but the tribe would be able to maintain their status. Now, if that changes, then we go through this, which would make it so that the tribe has waived their immunity. So I guess the point is this is, whoever came up with this was a good idea. This was a good way to solve the issues that we were seeing for our citizens, where they might get in a weird position where they would be here and maybe not have recourse if there were damages or something like that, but also a way for the tribe to be able to maintain their sovereign immunity, which is what they would be wanting to do. So I guess I hope that maybe clarifies it a little bit, but I think it was a really good way to work this out and a good way to kind of meet in the middle here.
And I think an additional advantage on the tribe side is that any other assets that they may own would not be subject to an LLC debt. It's just the assets within the LLC. Typically, that's why developers form LLCs or corporations for development, is it protects their other assets as long as they run it like a corporation. And I think the same idea prevails here, that this development and any assets in it would be subject to liabilities, but not the general assets of the tribe.
Ready? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye. The next item is Special Improvement District Agreement. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the SID.
Your Honor, I would move that we approve the SID agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor votes aye, and the motion passes. So, this is kind of fun. Yeah, this is pretty exciting. Okay, so that's the agenda for the special meeting. So the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned at 7:27. Okay.